There's a doorway we pass through every night, quiet, subtle, unnoticed by most. It's the space between waking and dreaming, where the conscious mind begins to fade and the subconscious steps forward, unguarded. Bob Proctor understood this space not as an ending, but as a beginning. Because in that moment, just before sleep, your thoughts become instructions. And your energy begins to take shape in silence. Most people go to bed thinking about what went wrong. The bills, the stress, the unanswered messages, the fear of tomorrow. These thoughts aren't harmless. They are vibrational seeds, planted in the soil of the subconscious when it's most fertile. And what you plant at night is what your vibration waters by morning. That's why your final thought is never just a thought, it's a command. According to Proctor, the subconscious doesn't sleep. While your body rests, your inner programming continues to run, processing, reinforcing, attracting. And what it processes most intensely is what you fed it last. That's the real secret behind nighttime reprogramming. If you end your day in scarcity, your energy aligns with lack. But if you end your day in abundance, gratitude, and alignment, the field around you begins to shift. The moment before sleep is not just mental, it's magnetic. The vibration you enter sleep with becomes the signal you transmit through the night. And that signal doesn't vanish with the sunrise. It lingers. It draws. It opens doors. Bob Proctor believed that wealth is attracted to those who habitually feel wealthy, and the habit begins with what you allow yourself to believe before you close your eyes. This is why those final seconds are sacred. Not for worry, not for regret, but for recalibration. If you can learn to direct your last thought with intention, just one clean, clear, empowered vibration, you begin to shape your financial reality while you sleep. And that's when money starts moving, quietly, naturally, almost without trying. Every night, just before you drift into sleep, your conscious mind begins to release its grip. The thinking slows. The logic quiets. The judgments fade. What remains is pure openness, a direct channel to the subconscious. Bob Proctor often referred to this window as one of the most powerful moments of the day, because it's when your internal programming becomes most accessible, most influenceable, and most vulnerable to suggestion. The subconscious mind does not filter, argue, or analyze. It accepts, fully and without resistance, whatever is consistently fed to it, especially in altered states of awareness. And the transition into sleep is exactly that, a state of inner openness, where suggestion turns into belief and belief becomes vibration. It's here that transformation doesn't require effort, only precision. Most people underestimate the power of this window. They fall asleep with the television on, letting fear, drama, and scarcity sink into the mind's deepest layers. Or they mentally rehearse everything that went wrong during the day, unknowingly reprogramming the subconscious to repeat those experiences. This is how cycles of lack are reinforced, not through action, but through energetic repetition. But the same doorway that allows scarcity and can also become a portal to abundance. When you enter sleep with intention, the subconscious receives your message as truth. It begins to realign your beliefs, your identity, and your energetic signature. This is the foundation of Proctor's teachings, the idea that lasting change doesn't begin with effort. It begins with frequency. And the frequency you sleep with becomes the foundation of the reality you wake into. So when you whisper something powerful just before surrendering to sleep, you're not just talking to yourself. You're instructing your energy. You're writing code into the invisible. And the subconscious, ever obedient, begins to rearrange your world in response. Quietly, repeatedly, unfailingly. Words are not just sounds. They are frequencies. Every word spoken carries a vibration, and every vibration leaves an imprint. Bob Proctor understood this clearly, that language is not merely communication, it is creation. When you speak, especially with emotion, you are sending instructions into the field around you. And those instructions do not vanish. They reverberate. They attract. They shape. Think of words as tools, or more accurately, as energetic codes. When you say words like, "I can't, I'm broke," or "It's hard," you aren't simply describing your situation. You're reinforcing it. You're giving it substance in your subconscious mind, and that substance becomes structure. Those words tell your energy what to expect, and energy always listens. But the same is true in reverse. When you speak words of abundance, ease, and trust, especially with conviction, you shift your field. You change your frequency. You override the default programming that's been looping for years. Proctor taught that one of the most overlooked practices in manifestation was not just visualizing what you want, but speaking it, consistently, clearly, and with feeling, until it becomes part of who you are. Before sleep, this power intensifies. In that liminal space between consciousness and rest, your brain waves slow down. You enter theta, the frequency of imagination, healing, and deep programming. And in that state, the words you speak carry far more weight. They move beyond the surface and settle into your energetic core. One phrase, if felt deeply enough, can begin to rewire years of limitation. This is why 3 simple words, spoken from alignment, not desperation, can begin to shift your vibration entirely. Not because they are magic in themselves, but because they are vibrationally charged. When spoken before sleep, they bypass resistance. They embed. And from there, reality starts to respond. Slowly at first, then all at once. Money doesn't just respond to thoughts. It responds to emotional frequency. And beneath most financial struggle lies an emotional imprint that never healed. Bob Proctor understood this with absolute clarity. He often said that the root of poverty isn't in the wallet, it's in the nervous system. It's in the memory of lack, the guilt tied to desire, the fear of not having enough, passed down like a vibration through generations. Many people believe they have a money problem, when in truth, they have an unresolved emotional pattern. Perhaps it's the shame of wanting more when others had less, or the pressure to prove their worth through success, or the fear of becoming like those who misused wealth. These emotions, buried beneath logic and surface-level mindset work, quietly emit a frequency that contradicts abundance, even as the conscious mind begs for change. This is why saying the right affirmations doesn't always work. If your emotional body is still aligned with scarcity, your vibration will remain conflicted. And the universe doesn't respond to words alone, it responds to coherence, alignment, truth, what you really feel, even if you've never spoken it out loud. But awareness is the first doorway. The moment you notice that your resistance to wealth is emotional, not intellectual, everything begins to shift. You realize it's not about working harder or thinking better thoughts. It's about healing the frequency underneath. And one of the most powerful times to do that is before sleep, when the subconscious is open and your emotional defenses are down. Bob Proctor taught that emotional vibration could be redirected, not by force, but by repetition and gentleness. When you speak new words with emotional presence, especially at night, you begin to soften the old programming. You create a crack in the structure. A new feeling enters. And that's all it takes. A small opening. A shift. A new current flowing in. Because once your emotional state aligns with abundance, money no longer feels like something outside of you. It becomes part of your energetic rhythm. They are simple, soft, almost too quiet to carry such weight. And yet, when spoken from a place of alignment, these 3 words become keys. Not because they are magic in isolation, but because of what they unlock within your energy field. Bob Proctor always taught that the most powerful tools are the simplest, but only if you believe them. These words are not for performance. They're for programming. And before sleep, they sink deepest. The words are, I am receding. That's it. Nothing dramatic. Nothing poetic. But within that short phrase lives an entire vibrational reorientation. When you say, I am receding, you're not asking, begging, or reaching. You're declaring. You're aligning with the frequency of arrival, not pursuit. You're telling your subconscious, this is already happening, and the subconscious responds by shifting the inner mechanics to match. There's no resistance in that phrase. No strain. Just acceptance. And acceptance is one of the highest vibrations you can hold. These words bypass the feeling of unworthiness, the fear of delay, the disbelief in manifestation. They root you in now. And that's where all power lives, not in some distant future, but in the quiet, present tense certainty of, I am. When repeated just before sleep, this phrase doesn't just float around your mind. It embeds. It enters the theta state, the frequency of reprogramming, and begins to rewrite old scarcity loops. You're not fighting lack. You're dissolving it through calm certainty. Every time you say, I am receding, you send a new instruction through your nervous system, into your field, and out into the quantum fabric around you. These words don't need to be shouted. Whisper them. Feel them. Let them carry emotional weight. If you say them with presence, even for a few nights in a row, you'll begin to notice subtle changes. In the way you feel. In the way money flows. In the way you stop chasing and start attracting. Because the shift doesn't come from outside. It begins with a frequency. And that frequency is yours to choose. The mind does not change through single moments of inspiration. It changes through repetition, quiet, steady, intentional repetition. Bob Proctor understood this better than most. He taught that your belief system isn't formed by what you know to be true, but by what you've heard and felt the most, especially in vulnerable states. And no state is more fertile than the edge of sleep. Each night, when your brain enters the transitional wave patterns between wakefulness and unconsciousness, your subconscious opens like a door. What enters that space isn't judged or filtered. It's absorbed. That's why repeating certain phrases, like, I am receiving, at that exact moment holds far more power than saying them during the noise of your day. In that stillness, your words become impressions, and impressions become beliefs. Most beliefs about money are not chosen, they're inherited. You didn't ask for them. You absorb them. Through repetition, through emotion, through observing lack and listening to fear. But the very method that built those limiting patterns is the same method that can undo them. When you speak new truth into your subconscious consistently, especially when your conscious guard is down, you begin to overwrite the code. This is not a dramatic process. It's subtle. You may not feel it working on the first night, or even the fifth. But over time, something softens. Your emotional resistance begins to dissolve. You find yourself reacting differently to money. You stop fearing it. You stop chasing it. And slowly, you begin allowing it. Bob often said, if you can hold it in your head, you can hold it in your hand. But what he really meant was this. If your subconscious accepts it as familiar, your life will start to reflect it. That's why repetition before sleep isn't just a ritual, it's a restructuring. You are not begging the universe. You are training your vibration. And the more consistent you are, the more naturally wealth begins to meet you, because you become someone who expects it. There is a moment, just before sleep fully takes you, where time feels suspended. Your body is still, your breath slows, and your mind begins to drift. In that moment, you're not fully here, but not fully gone. It is in this delicate space that something extraordinary happens. You begin to build a bridge, a vibrational one, a connection between your energetic intention and the reality you're calling in. Bob Proctor understood this as the crossover point, where your conscious thoughts begin to fade, but your chosen frequency remains active. If you planted the right signal, if you've repeated, with emotion, a phrase like, "I am receiving." That vibration doesn't vanish when sleep arrives. It travels. It moves through the subconscious like a wave, unhindered by doubt or distraction. And from there, it begins its silent work. This bridge is not physical. It's not logical. It doesn't follow the rules of time or action. It follows the rules of frequency. When you consistently fall asleep in alignment with the energy of abundance, your entire system begins to expect abundance. An expectation is one of the most magnetic vibrations there is. It tells the field around you, "This is what I allow. This is what I am ready for." Most people unknowingly build bridges to fear, to worry, to lack, simply because they fall asleep with those emotions still vibrating in their system. But with awareness, that pattern can change. The final thought before sleep can become the blueprint for what your energy constructs overnight. And when that thought carries the right frequency, your subconscious doesn't resist. It begins to build. You don't need to know how the money will come. That's not your job. Your job is to hold the energy that welcomes it, and sleep is the most powerful time to do that. Because when the body rests and the conscious mind releases, your true vibration is exposed. And in that exposure, the invisible begins its work. Quiet, constant, certain. It doesn't always start with a loud sign. Sometimes, it begins with ease. You check your account and feel calm instead of fear. An unexpected opportunity appears. A delayed payment finally clears. A person mentions your name in a room you weren't in, and things begin to move. It's not magic. It's resonance. The words you whispered in the dark have become signals in the light. And now, money is responding. When your vibration holds no tension, manifestation doesn't need force. This is the space Bob Proctor spoke of often, the place where abundance becomes normal. You no longer think about how or when. You no longer chase or question. You expect, you receive, you trust. Because now your nervous system is aligned with your vision, and your subconscious has been reprogrammed to welcome, not repel. The shift is internal, but the results are external. The world bends subtly around your frequency. You get invited into rooms you didn't know existed. You feel guided instead of pressured. You act from inspiration, not fear. The same life, but now in flow. That's what happens when you've repeated a new truth enough times that it no longer feels like affirmation. It feels like identity. You don't beg for the money anymore. You don't even affirm it loudly. You simply become the version of yourself who already lives in wealth, energetically, emotionally, vibrationally. And because your field is now coherent, clear, and open, the flow begins. Slowly at first, then faster, then effortlessly. And in that moment, you'll realize the power was never in the words alone. It was in your willingness to feel them as true, especially when no one was watching, especially in the silence before sleep.